course, this is the go-to passage, the virtuous woman. And I, just like some have already said, I'm thankful for the ladies in my life, all right? I'm thankful for my mother, and she had a great influence on me. And as a Christian, a godly mother, and a lot of things I learned, not just by what she said, but by her example as well. And I'm also thankful for my wife and the example that she set for my children. Matter of fact, I had the privilege of going in this passage. You'll see that we're not going to actually, I'm getting off script here, all right? And so this is verse number 10. It says, her price is far above rubies. Had the opportunity to go to Israel a couple years ago, and there was a guy. I wanted to get something for Faye as a memento. She didn't get to go with me, but I wanted to get her something to bring her back something. And there was a guy that was a jewelry maker that was there, and so he took a silver bracelet, all right, and he asked me what I wanted it to say, and so it stamped. I guess that's how they do it. I'm not sure exactly, but in Hebrew it's written around that it's stamped out of that silver bracelet, and that's what I told him to put as far above rubies, and so that's what she means to me, and that's the example that she has set for our children. And I think she's done a good job mothering, and just like my mother has as well. But let me just say, as we look at this, there are so many influences in this world that we have. Cultural influences, societal influences, friend influences, family influences, and all those kind of influences. And there are so many ideas of these certain topics that I'm going to go through today within this passage. And I'm going to tell you, there's one thing to have the influence of a school or society, but it's another thing. Mama has an influence unlike anybody else. And, you can always go to Mama and expect she's going to be the one that's going to sympathize with you. She's going to be the one to try to give you the help that you need in that specific time. And so that's what mamas do. In this particular passage we're about to read, there's a man by the name of Lemuel. This is what they call him here. And many believe that this man named Lemuel was actually Solomon. And so that would mean that this is Bathsheba that is actually saying these things to her son. And it's like a pet name. How many of you have your mama gave you a pet name? Anybody? All right. It could be, Rugrat or Junior or, whatever. But anyway, so many believe this is a pet name for Solomon that Bathsheba used. We're not 100% sure about that, but nevertheless, this is some lessons that were given to Lemuel, to Solomon, to combat, I feel like, some of the influences in the world that they had to deal with. And I'm telling you, this needs to come from our mothers. These things need to come from our mothers. It needs to come from our homes, not just to fill it out and hope for the best, but these are lessons that need to be taught. And if you've been taught these lessons from your mother, you ought to be very thankful. You ought to be very thankful for the mother that you had. And so let's go to Proverbs 31, and we're going to just read the first 9 verses here. It says, the words of King Lemuel, the prophecy that his mother taught him. What, my son, and what the son of my womb, and what the son of my vows? Give not thy strength unto women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not for kings to drink wine, nor for the princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law, and pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Give strong drink unto him that is ready to perish, and wine unto those that be of heavy hearts. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more. Open thy mouth for the dumb in the cause of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and the needy. Now, there are several things. I'm going to point out 4 things here as we go through this. All right, and so the first lesson that I want to... Now, and again, she mentions here, look in verse number 2. She says, my son. That's a present tense. In other words, he's standing right before her. But then she's rehearsing in her mind, and the son of my womb. But in her mind, she's going back to the time when Solomon or Lemuel was in her womb. And then it goes back even further, and it says, the son of my vows. Now that little phrase there, son of my vows, it is kind of open for discussion a little bit there, and it could mean actually her marriage vows. You know, why do you get married? Oh, you love the person, but it's to procreate, it's to have children. You know, and so she's looking back. It could be looking back on those vows, or it could also be some vows that she was making to God about this child. Hannah made some vows like that. Hannah, she actually said to God, she said, God, give me a man-child or a son, then I'll give him back to you all the days of his life. Remember that vow, that promise? And so I don't know how many of you mothers out there have made promises to God about your children, or had prayers and laid them before the feet of Jesus about your children. I know many mothers have. And so this is possibly, again, what that is referring to. And so as we look at this, the first lessons that she gives to Lemuel is lessons about life. About life. She's talking about the womb. She's talking about her vows. She's talking about that. And when you're talking about the womb, what are you considering there? What are you considering? And I want to go over, and the womb is mentioned several times. You know, it's an amazing thing. And I think it's in the book of Job where he talks about, he's speaking to Job about, explain to me how the baby's bones are formed in the womb. You know, explain that to me. If you're God, or if you have elevated to, you know, real knowledge, and you're the one in control, then tell me how that happens. And you know what? That is still a mystery, and it is still a miracle. And anybody that has ever witnessed a birth, it does something. Because you are witnessing a very miracle of life. And that miracle of life is not just a man-made product. It is something that God has designed and that God has made. And the way that He has designed the womb to grow and to nurture that baby while he's in that womb or she's in that womb, it is just a miraculous thing that you can see the hand of God in all of that. And we live in a society today, I told you about these influences. They just passed a bill here recently about the abortion bans, you know, up to, I don't remember, 13 weeks or something like that, 12, 13, 14 weeks, 15 weeks, something like that. And they passed that, and they've been protesting about that. And I have never understood, and I understand partially some of this, but I've never understood why a mother would want to fight for her right to remove or to eradicate a baby. I've never understood that. And but nevertheless, she needs to hear, or your children need to hear, first of all, His beginning. This is the next point of this outline here about life, His beginning. Where does He come from? Where does He come from? Look, if you go to school, what are they going to tell you? Oh, you know, life started out as a tiny amoeba, and then it formed into something else, and it's called the process of evolution. I'm going to tell you, you did not form from the process of evolution. You were formed by the very hand of God Himself. As a matter of fact, at the very beginning, the Bible says that God took the dirt of the ground and He formed it, and He made man out of the dust of the ground. And the Bible says He breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became not just a living creature, man became a living soul. And so when a birth happens, or just a pregnancy happens, you have to remember who has orchestrated this. Who is the originator of life? Who gives this? And the Bible tells us in Psalms that it says that children are an heritage of the Lord, and the fruit of the womb is His reward. It's His. It's all from Him. And so who is the originator of life? Who is the sustainer of life? Who is the giver of life? And when you're thinking about the son of my womb in that phrase there, I think this is what this is referring to. Remembering what God has done and what God has given. He is the giver of life. He's the giver of this child. He's the sustainer of that life. And so that beginning, Jeremiah, I had a verse down here. Jeremiah chapter 1, verse 5. You don't have to turn there. I'll read it. Just listen. If you want to jot it down and look at it a little bit later. It says, before I formed thee in the belly, I knew thee. And before thou camest forth out of the womb, I sanctified thee and ordained thee a prophet unto the nations. God knows these plans for these children. God has a plan for every single human individual. God has a purpose for them. But I think the first lesson that Bathsheba was telling Solomon is where he begins. And I'm going to tell you, mamas, you don't need to leave this up to somebody else to tell them where they came from. You need to tell them, look, God has brought us together, and God has brought you into our life, and God has formed you and allowed you to be conceived, and He has done this to bring you forth into this world, and He's using me as a vessel to bring you forth into this world. It is God that has given you life, and He has formed you in that womb, and so a lesson about life, His beginning. But then the next thing I want us to look at is His belonging. Look in verse number 2 as well. It says, what's that next phrase there? What's that next word? My son. And what the son of my womb. And what the son of my vows. There is a possession here. You know what's interesting is that we don't get to pick who we're born to. We don't get to pick that. You know, parents don't get to pick which children, what personalities they want in their children. We don't get to pick that. I did a wedding yesterday, and yesterday there was two sisters that were there, and they were very young, and one of these daughters is very outgoing, never meets a stranger, and just happy-go-lucky, everything, and the other one is as shy as shy can be. You know how it is. I try to get 5 from all the kids, right? And so one of them, man, oh yeah, hey, how you doing? Give me 5. And the other one's like, no. But those same 2 children came from the same mama, the same daddy, and they're entered into the same family, and God, by His divine providence, had placed that child into that family beyond any of the control of mom and daddy. They can't control a lot of things. There's a lot of things they can control, but a lot of things you can't control is which child you get. Some of you wish you could take them back. But you can't. And we wouldn't trade them for anything, would we? Even though, you know what? Sometimes it can be very trying. Sometimes it can be very stressful. But here's the thing. She says, this is my son. You know, it's the same thing that God says to us when we're His children. And nothing can change it. We're still His children. And we're in that family. We're in that family physically speaking. When Mama has that child and she said, this is my baby. My baby. My son. And then spiritually speaking, God would say the same thing. And we sometimes fail Him. But I'm thankful that He loves us in spite of our failures. He is faithful in spite of our unfaithfulness. And so this is a lesson that Bathsheba had for Solomon. We don't really get to control when he's born. You know, we're sitting there. We got a couple mamas here that are waiting, and waiting for the little one to come. And they don't know. I mean, they have a projected date. But you know what? They don't know exactly when that one's coming. They don't know exactly. That's in God's timing. It's all in God's hands. And but you know what? Even now, Brandon, I'm gonna pick on you this morning, okay? Let me. I want to ask you a question because I did the same thing. All right, I can pick on me too. Do you talk to her really? Isn't that amazing? Isn't that, James? Have you talked to that belly yet? You haven't yet. All right, it's coming. It's coming. Because there's somebody growing inside of there, and God is working a miracle inside of that womb. And before long, she's going to bring forth. And I'm going to tell you, you know, they're already in the family before they're ever born. Do you understand that? And so, what love there is for that. For somebody you've never met. Somebody you've never seen, somebody you've never talked to. Oh, but they're already in the family, and they're already making plans for them, and they already have ideas and perhaps aspirations of what that child will be or do or grow into. And so we're grateful for that, but there is belonging. So we see these lessons about life And Bathsheba is giving these to Solomon. And then the next thing here, she gives lessons about living. Look in verse number 3. Give not strength unto women, nor, now look what it says, thy ways, thy ways. There comes a point in time in the life of a child, now, and it's different for every child, but there's going to come a point in time when they have to make choices. And these choices are going to have an impact on their life. I'll give you the next 2 points. One is choices, and the next one's consequences. And as a matter of fact, look in verse number 3. Give not thyself strength, women, nor thy ways to that which destroyeth kings. There's a consequence. So there's choices and there's consequences that come along with this. And I think Solomon's mother, Bathsheba, was teaching him this. I'm going to tell you, we live in a society now that almost the parents just let their kids do whatever they want. And they don't even find out that there's even consequences to their behaviors until they end up in prison. And that's when they find out there's consequences. I want to tell you something, and I'm speaking to you from a parent. I'm speaking to you from a pastor standpoint. If you don't discipline your children while they're young, you're going to have major problems with them when they're older. Even though it breaks our heart to have to discipline them, it is a necessary thing, and it's biblical. The biblical thing is to discipline them so that they understand that there are consequences to the things that they do. You know what happens if I get a credit card and I get a $5,000 limit credit card and I go spend $5,000 on that credit card? Guess what? It's not free money. I got to pay that bill. Some people don't even understand that. There's a consequence to every action that we take. Again, there's two areas that are mentioned here, and I think these are not necessarily limited to these, but he talks about women, so we can talk about lust. We can talk about lust here. The mother, Lemuel's mother, was teaching her son about lust. That's one of those subjects nobody likes to talk about. But this was a subject that he was being taught and that he heard from his mother. All right? He's talking about women, not giving your strength to women. I want to tell you, mamas, you need to teach your children what to look for in a wife, what to look for in a husband, the qualities they need to seek out. Money, oh man, you got to find somebody with money. We're poor. You got to find somebody with money. I'm going to tell you, I would rather live poor and have a godly husband or a godly wife than to live ungodly and have all the riches in the world. You got to find somebody that's handsome or pretty. The Bible tells us that beauty fades. You know what? That other person's going to get old. And guess what? They're going to get wrinkles. And like some people, their hair is going to get gone. But because my wife is a godly wife and a godly mother, and she wants to obey the Lord, that's why she's still with me. But in God's Word, there are boundaries that are set when it comes to the subject of lust. There are boundaries. And I think that Bathsheba was going over those boundaries. You know why she was going over those boundaries? Why do you think she went over those boundaries? It's because at some point in her previous life, in the years before Solomon was born, she had experienced this. You all know what I'm talking about. She had experienced that. And you know what? She had experienced the pain that came from that. She lost a husband because of it. She lost a child because of it. There was turmoil within their family because of it. And look, and she's telling Lemuel, look, I don't want you to have to go through this. And the boundaries that God has set and the parameters that God has set on the area of lust are there not to hinder you, but is to help you and to live a victorious life. This is a lesson that his mama gave. All right, now let's look at the next one. Let's look at liquor. We talk about lust, now let's talk about liquor. Verse number 4. It is not for kings, O Lemuel, it is not to drink wine, nor for princes strong drink, lest they drink and forget the law, pervert the judgment of any of the afflicted. Now, here's what she's telling him. She says, look, there are things in this world that can hinder and can hinder your judgment. And anything that would hinder your judgment in life, you need to stay away from. Now, today, this particular category has expanded. All right, it is not just alcohol. There are so many other areas that hinder our judgment call, our ability to judge. And there are so many things that we can take into our body or to influence us in such a way as so that we won't judge properly. And she's bringing that out. She said, look, don't mess with it. Don't do that. You know, look, this is because it's going to hinder your judgment. You're going to, and guess what happens when you hinder your judgment? You do things that you would not otherwise do, and you end up hurting your own testimony, sometimes hurting your body, sometimes hurting other people. By the words you say or by the actions you do. And so she says, look, don't do it. I could go on. And by the way, alcohol is a deceiver. It destroys. That's what it does. It is a destroyer. It destroys your judgment. It destroys families. It destroys homes. And it destroys lives. And so look, I want to speak especially to our young people. This is something our mothers, they need to hear from home. They don't need to just hear it from the pulpit. They need to hear it from home and say, look, you stay away from these things. These things are not good for you. These things will hinder you from prospering in life. They will hinder you from serving the Lord. They will hinder you from having the kind of life you really want, the kind of family you really want, the kind of home you really want. And so she says to stay away from it. So she gives lessons about life. She gives lessons about living. And then look in verse number 6. Give strong drink to him that is ready to perish, and wine to those that are heart. Now, what is he talking about here? He's not talking around. He's not talking about giving alcoholic beverages to all your buddies. That's not what this is talking about. What he's talking about, this is an example of love, about love, and this is compassion. Compassion towards those that are suffering and dying. That's what this is. And so, look, you should never get into an area where you look down on people. Some people do that. They get down and out, man, they want to kick people while they're down. This is a lesson from Mama that, look, when someone is in need of help, when someone is at the point of dying, look, come alongside and you do what you can to help them. Not run away from those type situations. There are people, even in our church, that, man, it gets into a situation where, man, they don't know what to say. They don't know how to respond. You understand? Preacher, you've been in some of those situations. I've been there all the time. Man, I go into homes where people are suffering, people are dying, and what do you say to somebody like that? It's not about what you say. It is just about going and being with them and spending time with them, praying with them, sometimes weeping with them. And to be there to help them, to build people up, not tear people down, but to be there when people are hurting. That's what this is talking about. Have a mind towards others. You know, we have a tendency to look on our own problems and we get consumed with our own problems, don't we? I got this going on, man, it's so bad. We have our pity parties. We sometimes enter into a depression. Sometimes we get to feeling sorry for ourselves. We get like that. But here's the thing: what we need to do is start looking at others, because I'm going to tell you, there's always somebody else out there that's in worse shape than you are. And at the very least, we can come beside them and say, man, look, I'm going to pray for you. I heard about what you're going through, and I tell you, I'm going to lift you up to the throne of God, and God's going to minister to you. God's going to strengthen you. And so when we get our eyes off of ourselves and start looking on other people, this is a lesson that Lemuel's mother taught him, looking to others. It's not all about me and all about what I can get out of this life. It's about helping others and serving others. Not looking down upon others in their weak moments, but to undergird them and lift them up, help them. But then also look in verse number 8. Open thy mouth for the dumb in the case of all such as are appointed to destruction. Open thy mouth, judge righteously, and plead the cause of the poor and needy. So this has to do with leading. In other words, when you find somebody who is down and out, when you find somebody who is struggling, when you find somebody, here it says, appointed to destruction. Have you ever met somebody, man, they're on the road to destruction? You ever met somebody like that? I meet them all the time. The decisions they make, there's consequences, because I understand there's consequences to the choices they're making. And man, they're going down that path. But what does it say? It says to open your mouth. Don't wait on somebody else to say something. Don't wait on somebody else to help. Don't wait on that. You be the one to stand in the gap. You step up when the opportunity presents itself, and you be the one to stand in the gap for those people, the poor and needy. Are you that person? This is something that his mother taught him. Be the one warning of destruction. You know what? It's easy sometimes when somebody says something. What's the first thing we do when somebody says something against us? Man, we want to lash back, don't we? We want to defend ourselves. We want to step up, and we want to open our mouth because they said something. Now we got to say something. It's easy to do that, but I'm going to tell you something entirely different when somebody says something about another church member, or perhaps your wife or your husband or your children or a friend or perhaps someone in need. Oh, I tell you what, if they'd have made some right choices, they wouldn't be in that situation. You be the one to defend those type people. You be the one to stand up. Look, these are lessons that his mother taught him. Lessons about life, lessons about living, lessons about loving, and lessons about leading. I'm going to tell you something. These are hard things. I'm going to tell you, mamas, I tell you, this is an example that God gives us in his word. And sometimes these conversations are hard to have with your children. The idea of lust. Man, that's a hard conversation sometimes. Be the mama to step up, and I know some of you do so well at this, and I'm so thankful for many of you that do this. You stand up and you do everything you can do to prepare your children for this world. They're going to leave the nest one day, you know. And they need to know these things. They don't need to hear it just from school. I'm going to tell you that the school has an idea of what love is. The school has an idea of what leading is. The school has an idea of what life is all about. And I'm going to tell you, it's completely contrary to what God's idea is. And I'm going to tell you, they need to hear it from our mothers. They need to hear it from our homes. And I'm going to tell you, mamas, we need to stand up. And I want to encourage you. I want to encourage you to be the mama God desires for you to be. And I know many of you are, and I'm so thankful for you. But I just want to remind you this morning of our responsibility as mamas to teach our children about life, where they come from, who do they belong to, about living, lust, liquor, all those life issues. You need to talk to them about those things. You need to talk about loving, not just in word, but also in our actions. Teach them this. Teach them about leading. Solomon was going to be king. He became the wisest man to ever live. And the Bible tells us God gave him wisdom. But I think in some part God used his mother to impart some of that wisdom to him. And I'm so thankful for our mothers. Look, this is a great opportunity that you have with your children. Oh, look, we love our children. I understand that. You love them like no one else. You care for them. You provide for them. But I'm going to tell you there are life lessons that need to be taught, and they need to become from mama. Not just from anybody else or waiting on someone else to do it. These are things that we have to be purposeful, and we have to take the initiative in. Because I'm telling you, somebody else will if you don't. And they need to hear it from you, because when it comes from mama, it means a whole lot more than when it comes from anybody else. And so what a great opportunity you have, and what a great responsibility you have. And again, I'm thankful for my mama. I'm thankful for my wife, the ladies and my wife. I have 2 daughters, and one of them's a mama, and I'm thankful for her and the way she's raising her children as well. The other one will be a mama before long, maybe. And so, no, I'm picking. But mamas, we're so grateful for you. And isn't that a wonderful sound? Isn't it? Wonderful. She's already trying to have one of those conversations with her. And she wasn't ready to receive it just yet. And so, anyway, all right, let's be thankful for our mothers today and the influence they've had on us. And at the same time, I want to encourage our mothers and just challenge you a little bit for the conversations that need to happen. All right? Because, look, whether you know it or not, you probably have the greatest influence in the lives of your children than anybody else in this world. And so maybe we ought to thank the Lord. Perhaps you have some other burden on your heart this morning. I want you to know you can come and leave it with the Lord. Perhaps you need to come thank the Lord for your mother. Perhaps you didn't have a mother like that, like what we kind of described today. And but you need to come pray for your mom. Come pray for her. And but some of you can look back. Some of our moms have gone to be with the Lord, and we can sit and just thank the Lord. You know that, hey, we're thankful that for the influence she had on me and you, and the life that she lived, and we're thankful for it, grateful for it. And I know this Mother's Day is sometimes bittersweet. It's a time of memories, but at the same time, it's a time of what is now, evaluating what is now. And so, mamas, I want to just, again, challenge you for what's been said today from Proverbs 31. And then again, I want to encourage you and just tell you we're thankful for you, we love you, and we appreciate you. Let's stand together. We'll sing a hymn of invitation. If you need to come and pray and seek the Lord and maybe lay a burden at the feet of Jesus, you can come and do that.
I need thee every hour, most gracious Lord. No tender voice like thine can peace